Hi, I'm Jean Nolte, editor at Fons & Porter.
And I'm Colleen Tauke, the sewing specialist from Fons & Porter. In this tutorial, we will show you how to create the handy tote.
For a pattern for this project, go to shopfonsandporter.com/quiltingquickly. This is a handy bag to have, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And it's also a good project to use up some leftover strips because it really only uses 12 2.5-inch strips, so you don't need a whole pack. Or if you bought a whole pack, you could make several.
You can make 2 bags or 3 bags.
Probably 3. So we've already got this
The top.
partially constructed, but we're going to talk about the pieces that you would make for this bag. It has a front where the panels go vertically. It has a back where the panels go horizontally, and then the bottom and the side pieces. So the first thing we talk about is the front.
Now, I went and cut just the 2.5-inch squares because I wanted to have a scrappy look. I didn't want to create strip sets or anything. So I just actually laid out the squares. It's only a bag, so it doesn't take too long. So I made rows.
24 squares.
Trying to create kind of an uneven pattern, lights and darks, and created the large section here. And then I created the strip set to go next to it.
Okay, so this has 24 squares, 4 strips.
Mhm.
Then we come over here. This is what in the instructions is called side A.
Side A.
Okay, then we come over here to side B.
Then we have 21 squares, 3 by 7 here, and 5 strips to create the bottom part of this section.
Okay, so that's just pretty easy piecing. You join to make those 2 sections, and once you have section A and section B, we're going to join them
with a rectangle.
With a rectangle that's the bottom.
Yep, that's the bottom of your bag.
Okay, then we need these 2 long strips, one on each side, and those are going to be the side pieces of your bag. Okay, so once you have that together,
Now
we're going to layer that.
we've got a backing fabric, a batting, and our quilt top. And we're using a spray-based, so we don't have to worry about pins. Put the layers together in a quilt sandwich, and so that it will slide into the sewing machine really easily with a basting spray holding everything
So
in
now,
place.
you've done a couple of different kinds of quilting on this. We have just a zigzag in the
Chevrons are so
squares.
popular, except that maybe I don't want it to be really obvious. I put my chevrons in my quilting instead.
It's also an easy thing because you can just sew from corner to corner and you don't have to mark it.
Correct.
So that's a great way, but you can quilt it however you want. Then in the strip section, you did a little bit different.
I just decided instead of everything having to be straight line, straight line, straight line, and sometimes it's really hard to be perfectly straight, I would just make a nice lazy line, 3 strips down each, of quilting down each
Right.
rectangle.
And one tip is use a walking foot. When you're doing this, it will make things
Nice and
stay,
even.
yeah, nice and even. So once you've quilted this section and this section, did you quilt the bottom as well?
I did not quilt the bottom. On this one, what I did is I actually went in the ditch along where the side section panels are attached and went around the bottom so I knew where the bottom, and it would be stable that way.
And that's enough. So the sides and the bottom don't need any quilting.
You can go down through there. On
I
the
guess
actual
you did.
bag, I did do
A little
couple
bit
of
in-
lines similar to the quilting that I did in the long rectangles.
Okay. So now we're ready to assemble, right? No.
Just one more step. When you layer your quilts, you always know that backing and batting are cut just a little bit larger, just in case there's any shift. So when you're done quilting, come back in, and you're going to trim up to the quilt top,
So just even with.
even all the way around.
Now we're ready to assemble. So I'm
Then
gonna
you
move
will
this
place
out of the way.
right sides together. Bring
So you
this
just
out.
basically fold your bag in half.
You can see here, there's where the quilting is and all the bright colors. Right sides together. We're just going to use a 1/4-inch seam. I realize that in some bag patterns they have a little larger, but we're in the mode of using strips here, so we don't want to waste any fabric. We're going to use a 1/4-inch seam along each side. And I went back then, and you can either use a serger or a zigzag stitch to kind of compress that seam so that it gives a little added strength to your bag.
Okay.
Now we want to go back and create the bottom, and we're going to box the corners. If, when you were quilting, you outlined the bottom of the bag,
Oh, yeah.
see, there's the bottom of the bag. That also gives us a little clue where we are going
That
to
just
box
makes it lie down flat
a
for
cheat
you.
line. There's the bottom corner of our bag.
So you're just going to stitch on that line again.
Press the seam allowance cutoff to one side.
There.
Use a walking foot so it can deal with all the layers.
That's pretty thick, but it'll
be okay.
go through there.
It
So
goes
you're going to actually just stitch, and it's if you want to measure, it's 2 inches away from the point
to here. It's 2
to there.
inches.
So then you're just going to stitch
You can
across
reference
there.
that in the pattern. See how the machine has no problem
Really
going
just goes through there. That's quite a few
really
thicknesses,
easy.
but it's going right through.
Just follow that line all the way across. You can reinforce your at each end, which I forgot to do.
Probably
but
could even stitch it twice if you wanted to
you
make
could.
sure. This bag will probably get some pretty good use.
Good use,
So.
yes.
So
So now that
then-
we have that stitched, then we can come back in and you can use a rotary cutter or you can use the scissors.
I
and
think it's easier to sometimes just use the scissors.
Exactly. Instead of taking out the rotary cutter and a ruler for just this little tiny piece, we cut away.
Then would you over edge that
Right.
again?
And I would zigzag that, and again, reinforcing that edge, adding some strength and durability
So
to the
on
bottom.
both of those.
And we're going to trim away both these. They're kind of like big dog ears.
They're
bottom
just
of our
kind of,
bag.
yeah, in the way. All right, so now are we ready to turn that right side out?
Yes, we are.
All right,
We're
I'll
gonna
work on
turn.
turning this right side out and you get the lining going there.
Okay. Because we don't want to have to see all the quilting lines on the inside of our bag, let's add on a little bit more blue to the project. Okay, we've got the lining. You cut it would go to your instructions and cut your lining, the dimensions it calls for. Right sides together. This is a very similar construction as the outside of the bag. So you have 1/4 inch seams down each side, like this. And you're going to box the corners in the exact same method, measuring 2 inches in from the outer corner, stitching there, and trim that. And
All
if
right.
you would like to go and back and put a zigzag stitch on that,
Good,
then
if you
can.
want to. All right, we're going to flip this right side out too, right?
No, we're not.
No, we're
just going
not.
to drop it right into the bag.
All right, I got
we
the
are
bag
getting
ready.
really close. So, drop the lining down inside of the bag. Find your side seams. Match side seam to side seam. And to hold everything in place, what I do is usually go around the edge and just kind of adjust and
So
pin.
it should be
all
just
along
exactly
top
the
edge.
same size
Yes,
around
it
the
is.
top. So if we put a few pins in here.
Just so that it doesn't slide away when we're trying to sew later. Now, in order to finish the bag really quickly, we decided we all know how to make binding. Why not just make binding to go along the
Right.
top edge?
So this is just like regular quilt binding.
Yep, 2.5 inch strip. Since everything's cut 2.5, why not just repeat that? So 2.5 inch strips of binding. We will add it just like we're adding to a quilt. You would stitch 1/4 inch seam from that cut edge, and you're going to roll it to the inside, and top edge will be finished.
And did you stitch that down by hand?
Yes, I did on the inside.
Just makes it
I
look
want it to look really nice and neat.
A little
just
bit
like my quilt.
neater. So all we have left
Are
is
some handles.
All right, so I'll
We've
move
got the
this out
bag
of the
part
way.
constructed. We just need some handles. Okay, handles are cut 4.5 inch or 4 inches wide
Okay.
total, and the length is noted in the pattern. Then we take it to the ironing board and we turn in the short ends in 1/2 inch.
So both of them have been turned under.
So
okay.
that's finished. Then we're going to take the entire piece and fold it in half. Press. You can see our ridges are already here.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to follow. Now we take the 2 cut edges to the center so they meet. This is what it's looking like right now. But if we made this as a handle, it'd be awfully wimpy. It wouldn't have much stability to it. So in order to make them more substantial, we cut 2-inch strips of batting. A lot of us have those strips of batting hanging around in your sewing room. I know you do.
I could make about 100 bags, but I have
Exactly.
left over.
We always think, well, we'll use them for something. Well, here's where we're using them. Cut them into 2-inch wide strips. I applied a little bit of that spray base to hold them in place so things wouldn't shift on me. Laid it right down the center.
So these are those stitched in lines.
Right, and everything is nice and pressed already, so it just rolls right to the center.
All right.
And then in
fold it
half
again.
again.
Look at that.
All the edges
Boy,
are
that's a
all
lot
tucked
sturdier.
in. Yeah, it's not gonna stretch out. It's not gonna look
All right. So
wimpy.
now we're ready to stitch that.
Right, and
And
Magic.
magically, yeah, we have
we're
one
gonna
that's
bring
already
in.
done.
I use the same color of thread that I did the machine quilting on the bag. It's kind of a turquoise.
It's a little contrast.
1/4 inch stitch all the way around. Make 2.
Okay,
You need
so
two
now-
you need 2 handles.
All we have left to do is attach them to
the
the
bag.
bag. So,
Depending on what you're going to be carrying in the bag, you do want them attached in a fairly sturdy way. So I stitched a square and then made an X in the middle of it.
sometimes I've seen them where you go around this more than once.
And you can do that
Just
too.
whatever,
Exactly.
whatever you think is right.
Depends on what you're going to be carrying in
So
it.
then you're of course going to do the same thing on the other
Both
side.
sides. And your bag is ready to go.
Your tote is finished.
Thanks for joining us today.
To see more of our videos, go to video.fonsandporter.com.